Okay, compounding interest. So how does it work? What is it? Why is it? Okay, so this works differently to simple interest in that what it does is it breaks the time up into set blocks and the interest compounds as you go. So if that represents a year, okay, let's try and make this. All right, so I've got it into quarters. I've got the year into quarters. So this whole thing here is 1 year. And let's say this particular bank account says we are doing compounding interest and it compounds quarterly. What that means is you kick it off with the principal there, okay, and as it comes along, it gets a little bit of interest 4 times over. So the interest is calculated over this bit, then the interest is added, and then that amount rolls over into this bit. So you're actually earning interest on top of interest because this is now principal plus that little bit of interest, boom, 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 gets added, okay, and then you've got 4 shots of interest because it compounds quarterly. If it compounded monthly, there'd be 12 shots of interest, okay? So that is compounding interest. It has better growth than just simple interest. Let's see a bit more detail how it actually works. So I'm just going to do a bigger diagram like that one, and this is going to be, again, the year. Okay, so this represents 1 year. Okay, now let's say the bank offers you an interest rate. And now I've just rigged this so it's just easy to see, but let's say it's 4.4% per annum, okay? Again, PA per annum per year. So for the whole year, there's 4.4% for the whole year, okay? And you're going to kick this off, okay? So here we chuck, let's say $500, and that is your principal, okay? Just like we've always seen, principal is how much you start off with. As the year chugs along, we get to the first quarter, and it's going to apply a bit of interest, but it's not going to be 4.4%. Okay, it's 4.4% per annum, but we are looking at just this time period here, which is a quarter. It's a quarter of the year. So what we're going to look at is a quarter of that. So it's 4.4 divided by 4 per quarter. Not per annum, but per quarter. So that's 1.1. 1.1% per quarter. All right. So what happens is, at these spots along the way, here, 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 and at the end, it gets shots of 1.1%. So by the time the year has gone past, 4.4% has been added. Okay? That's how compounding interest works. Now, because things are split up into these compounding segments, we need a formula that's more complicated. Okay? And here is what the formula looks like. And this is on your formula sheet. You will not have to memorize this, so do not freak out. All right? Now, P is principal, just like we've always seen. 1 is 1. I is the interest rate per quarter, or per compounding time. If it could be monthly, okay? But it's the interest rate. That is the interest rate for that section. Not for the whole year, but for that section, okay, divided by 100. N is how many times does that interest get added? How many compounding segments are there? So in this case, it's 4. So N is no longer years, okay? N is how many times does that interest just keep getting injected into it. If it was Over a year, it'd be 12. If this went for 2 years, there'd be 8 times that the interest is injected into it. So N would be 8. Okay, so there's a bit to think about there. Now, this doesn't just apply to money. This applies to a whole bunch of things that grow. You know, trees grow according to this. Bacteria colonies, rust patches, all, you know, these things, anything that how fast it grows depends upon what's already there. This applies. By the way, just for interest's sake as well, this is not on the test, but we've talked in the past about depreciation, how the value of things decreases. If you change that to a subtract, that's how depreciation's worked out. Okay, that's just a little aside. Let's see how we use this. So let's say I've got, let's say I'm going to invest $1,000 for 2 years. And it's compounded quarterly. And the interest rate is 3.7% per annum. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, that is how much is in the account at the end. That's how much the amount is. Okay, the accumulated amount. Accumulated amount. Okay, so that's not interest, that's just how much is there. Okay, all right, let's go back to this. All right, so I've got my formula. So before we go and use that, we need to sit and think, okay, well, what are all the bits and pieces? Okay, so P is $1,000, that's easy, okay, because that's how much you're putting in. What is little I? Okay, so it is a quarter of that, but then that divided by 100, okay, so it's 3.7 divided by 4, because that's per year, but I want this in quarters of the year, but then that whole thing's got to be over 100 because it's a percentage. All right, so now this is, we really need to have some decimal places happening here. 3.7 divided by 4 is that. Divide that by 100. Okay, so that's 0.00925. Put it all in. Okay, so that's little I. N, how many times for the whole life of this investment does this get injected into it? Well, it's 4 times a year, compounded quarterly. So for 1 year, it goes 4 times. But we're doing this for 2 years. So it goes 8 times. Okay? Righto, so let's plug things in. A equals 1,000 outside of 1 plus 0.00925 to the power of 8. Okay, this is why I did the previous video where you had to just drive the calculator to do that, because you might know all about how to do this, but if you can't find that button on the calculator, you can't do this. Alright, so 1,000 times, open the bracket, 1 plus 0.00925, close the bracket, to the power of 8. Okay, $1,076.44. Okay, so that's how much would be in the account at the end. All right, now you might say, well, whoop-de-doo, what's big deal, $76? Here is the point about these kinds of accounts. They're called term deposits. Okay, and the beauty of them is, well, first of all, it's better interest than just simple interest. You would actually earn a bit more than what simple interest would do. But here's the good thing about it. If you put this in for 2 years, you actually like sign a document to say it's going to be in for 2 years. It's locked away and you can't touch it. In fact, you actually forget this $1,000 exists because you just go on with life and it's sitting out there in cyberspace for 2 years earning all of this. It is a very good way to lock money up so you can't get to it, and so it earns better than the usual interest. Not You're not going to get rich off it, but it's a good way to just manage money. Anyway,